quarter and he's, going downhill, he's special. It's just as simple as that. And, obviously in the fourth quarter, he was special. But, I think as he matures, he's going to be doing what he does in the fourth quarter for all 48 minutes. And I think he's going to start just blossoming into to the superstar we all see him to be.
Karl-Anthony Towns, I think sharing the sentiment that we all share that Ant Edwards is destined for some stardom in his future. Gersson Rosas, president of basketball operations for the Minnesota Timberwolves, joins the show, and it's probably like his fourth appearance on the show. We thank him for taking time out of his schedule. We want to talk about Ant with you. We want to talk about the team and everything, but I'm going to guess you're a little distracted going into the weekend with your Houston squad set to play in the Final Four, sir.
Great question. Definitely. You
did that on purpose.
I had to get it out of the way early.
Anytime I mean, it was a very thoughtful, great, personalized question. I mean, what do you want me to?
You got to compliment the background work. I appreciate that. No, it's a fun weekend. Kelvin Sampson and I worked together at Houston, and then he transitioned over to the University of Houston. So it's special. It's a great run. But even for all of us, just to have March Madness back, just to have the tournament back, some level of normalcy. But no, it's great to have the Cougars there. Tough game on Saturday versus Baylor, very talented team. It's going to be a dogfight. But it's exciting to have that program back where it's at now and to be able to enjoy it, especially this close here in the Midwest. It is going to be a little distracting. But a lot of good basketball this weekend.
So on your team, how do you go about trying to judge a team and a coach when you make a change like you did, as far as trying to get a read on what Chris Finch needs and it's tough because there's not a lot of time to practice too. So it's a ton of games for a guy who just stepped in. What is the rest of this year about for you and Chris Gersson as far as the evaluation process goes?
That's a hard reality for us. It's a very unique year, and everybody's trying to do their best to move forward in this season. But for us as a young team, with the need for practice, with the need for development, you add a new coach into the mix. It's challenging, but you guys know the reality. Nobody's feeling sorry for us. Nobody's going to give us an extra month of practice just for this, because that's what we need. So we have to do the best that we can with the information we can and be as aggressive as we can. Like, where we're at is not where we want to be, but we're fortunate we're establishing a foundation of great players in Cat and good young players in terms of building the foundation. We don't know what we have right now with D'Angelo and Cat and the rest of our group. Some of our players have even brought up to me there, D'Angelo hasn't played with this Anthony. D'Angelo hasn't played with this Jaden, and we have to figure that out. So for that reason, these last 25, 24 games are critically important to us in that this is our games, these are our practices, this is our off season, this is our training camp from last year. We've got to really maximize where we're at. And a big part of the coaching change during this season is we really needed to readjust our identity, both from an offensive and defensive perspective, and as a platform for our young players to develop. And that's something that, talking with ownership as we discussed the big picture, it was necessary that we did it as soon as possible to get through these growing pains and these learning curves now. I don't know what this offseason looks like. I don't know what next preseason looks like. We're not guaranteed anything. So we have to bring the change that we need now. And I'm very confident that the success we're going to have next year is going to be attributed to the changes we made now and the steps forward that we took as an organization, both individually with our players, figuring out what we have with this group, getting more than 5 games out of D'Angelo and Cat together with this, with our core together, and moving forward into this offseason, realizing what we have, what we need, and how do we address those situations.
And so, Gersson, you brought up that D'Lo hasn't played with this version of Ant Edwards, and so that maybe partially answers my next question. And I'm going to preface this by saying I quit basketball in 8th grade because the conditioning was too aggressive, and so this is a complete amateur observation. when Basketball Reference has amazing tools, and you can go check out lineup combinations, and D'Lo plus Ant on the court at the same time has been a lot of negative value for you guys in the box score. But that combination really only played before the All-Star break because D'Lo's been out. And so I guess my question is, they haven't looked great together on the court. What can they look like on the court, and what gives you confidence that they can play together for large chunks of minutes when he comes back?
Yeah, so a big part of that was the philosophical change. And I didn't feel like the system, the structure that we had in place was conducive not only to our top guys, but to our young guys moving forward. And we had to change that infrastructure. And Coach Finch and the staff and the players deserve a lot of credit in that you're seeing incremental developments in our program. And a big part of that is the development of our young guys. I think it's no surprise that Anthony Edwards is named the Rookie of the Month this month, and it's because of the comfort level in this system, the comfort level in this program, and in this offense and in this defense. I think we've put ourselves in a situation now where we have platforms where guys can operate to their strengths. By no means have they figured it out. There's a long stretch of development, but those are key areas for us. Like how do D'Angelo and Ant work together, and how can we put them in a position? I think Chris Finch has an incredible offensive mind. He's done a good job of not only putting these guys in a position to be successful, but coaching them and holding them accountable. Ant missed a couple of the last fourth quarters here over the last week, 10 days. And those were important teaching and development moments for him. And it's the reason why he can bounce back. But I do feel we're going to have a structure in place where we can not only put D'Lo in a position where he can be successful and productive, Ant, Beasley, which we haven't had together, Jaden McDaniels and his development and growth. But it all comes together because we have a very unique and special superstar in Karl-Anthony Towns who wants it to happen. And he's not a guy that's trying to get stats. He's not trying to get points. He wants to win. And my job is to bring as much talent as possible on this team. Our coaches, it's their job to make it work. And it's our players' job to commit to what we're trying to do in order to be successful. And since the change, we're playing close to a 500 level. Guys are playing more consistent. Our focus has been to do offensively and defensively the things we can recreate game in and game out. And that's our focus here for the rest of the season.
The Karl thing's interesting in that I think on one side of it, there's how do players just sort of fit together schematically. But then there's also the personality and leadership pecking order. And my own observation, it's never seemed to me that Cat has felt super comfortable as like a vocal and personality leader, and maybe you disagree with that, but Ant seems comfortable with that. I mean, Ant Edwards is 19 going on 30 with sort of his confidence and personality, and Karl seems comfortable sometimes just deferring that side of it to Ant. I mean, is that a misread, or is that how you sort of look at it?
No, I think that's a fair assessment. And, I've been in the league close to 20 years. You're not going to change guys. Guys are who they are. You can only put them in a position where they can be successful. Karl is he's a leader in his own way. He's more of a guy that talks to guys individually. He gives them a lot of confidence. There's a special relationship with him there, but he's different. And I don't want him to be somebody he's not. I don't want any of these guys to be somebody they're not. Ant is who he is. He's a ball of energy, charismatic force that loves playing, loves winning, and is a youthful energy that's trying to figure things out. And we needed that. When we drafted him, I saw him as a good compliment to Cat, to D'Lo, to some of our other guys, because he has that charismatic personality. And he's driven to be great. Like, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's scratching the surface. This is a football player turned basketball player who should be a freshman in college this year. But he's got a grit and a spirit to him that's very special. And you see that. And the thing that I value the most is his ability to allow himself to be coached. He's not in here griping about not playing fourth quarters. He's understanding that he needs to play better. And that's where we see the development. That's where we see the growth. That's where we see the adjustment of a game like the New York game, where he just takes over. And for a 19-year-old who has no idea what he's doing, who doesn't understand it, but has incredible freakish talent and physical tools, that's a great sign for us. But nobody wants to win more than Cat, and he wants to make sure these guys are in a position to be themselves, to be productive, and to help us win.
So what is your expectation with a training camp with Finch, obviously having time to get to know these players? Gersson, what's your thought process and expectation for how different the 2021-22 season can be for this team once there's time for things to progress? Are we talking about a huge step up, like potentially a playoff type turnaround? Are we talking about it's still going to be gradual? What do you want to see, and what do you think you'll see?
Well, philosophically, systematically, I expect major change. As much as Chris is changing this season, it's a more of a less is more approach. So we're trying to take things out. We're trying to focus on the most important things, and we're trying to be consistent. We're trying to create a competitive spirit, and you're seeing it. A lot of the things over our last 8 to 10 games have been our guys trying to adjust, especially with young players trying to figure out whether it's game plans or opponents or what's going on. But I love that our spirit has become, we're not going to give up. We come back from falling to big leads, and that's not a trend we want to have. We want to get better starts, but we want to have a competitive spirit where we're never out of a game. And to win the New York game the way we won it with stops, rebounds, defensive plays, that speaks to the group that we're becoming. But I do think, in a big way, what we're going to see this next year from this team is going to be totally different. A full off season, a full training camp under Chris Finch and his staff, we're going to be a lot different. And there's only so much you can impact at this stage with games, limited practices. But there's a big urgency going into next year. We have to take a step forward. We have to be more consistent. We have to be more productive, and it's got to be more about winning.
What is the thing that Chris Finch is the best at in your mind?
Well, his perspective, like being a coach for 30 plus years all over the world, being a head coach for 20 plus years, he's got an incredible basketball mind, and it's developed through different experiences at different level, playing and having had different players at different levels. But his ability to connect the dots from offense to defense, his ability to put guys in a position to be successful, but he's got an edge, and his ability to let players know how much he cares while at the same time hold them accountable and call them out in a way that's conducive to winning is pretty unique and special.
Yeah, I love the anecdote that he, in one of the games where Ant was benched for the fourth quarter and they sat down and watched film and talked about it. I mean, that's awesome. And the fact that the player is good with that and the coach is comfortable having that conversation, I mean, that's how it should be.
Well, where we're at is about winning, and it's not about your feelings. It's not about good play, bad play. It's what do we need to do to win? And our players are committed to that. Our coaches are committed to that. The organization is committed to that. We don't have time for all the other things. We've got to get to the heart of the issue, and that's how to figure out how to win consistently.
All right.
Thanks, Gersson.
Gersson, good stuff, man. We'll talk again sometime probably between end of season and draft so we can ask you a bunch of invasive questions about hopefully you guys keep the pick, but I know you guys want to win
and
games,
he'll tell us exactly what the plan is.
We'll be in the war room.
Yeah.
We'll
guys
show us the board, Gersson. Show us the board.
You guys will know that, but I'm expecting another call next week in case a certain team advances there to Monday. I don't want to forget about that.
Actually, if that happens, let's just do a breakdown of the championship game. You don't even have to talk Wolves.
Hey, I'm game. And we'll talk.
D'Lo back when, Gersson? When is D'Lo going to be back? Do you think?
He's soon. He's soon.
Okay.
I expect him here sooner rather than later over the next week. He's working hard. Hopefully, we haven't had any setbacks, but no, we need him back on the court soon, and he's working hard to get back there.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Bye, Gerson.
Thank you, guys.
He's got to get to a meeting, and he refused to let us in the Zoom meeting, so we'll let him go. Gersson Rosas, president of basketball operations for the Timberwolves. And by the way, his appearance brought to us by Dennis Kirk. So Dennis Kirk is the absolute best in the business when it comes to motorcycle riding, sport bike, metric cruises, whatever you ride. They've got parts for you. 160,000 parts and accessories in stock, clothing and helmets. If you order before 8 p.m., they ship the same day, and shipping is free for orders over $89. The sun is starting to come out more often. The weather is starting to turn, and so that means it's riding season. DennisKirk.com, everything you need for your ride at DennisKirk.com. Before we jump into Judd's first ever review of the Mighty Ducks here, I love having him on. I mean, he's always super honest, and without going too aggressively in on Ryan Saunders or mentioning his name, you know, when we asked the question, what makes you think that Ant and D'Lo can coexist on the court, knowing that they're like I didn't have the numbers in front of me, but they're like a minus 30 per 100 possessions or something, small sample size, and he said, yeah, well, the old infrastructure and system was the main reason for that, and we feel like Chris Finch's infrastructure and system and the way that Ant has evolved is going to fix that problem. So he didn't name Ryan, but he was pretty clear.
Well, and Ryan, as we talked about back when he got the full-time job, was put in a very difficult situation for his age. Like that's not that's not the norm. I mean, Chris Finch is, I think, 51, and Chris Finch comes in with a background, and I mean. The fact is, look, Ryan Saunders does not bench Ant for the end of 2 games. He just doesn't. And Ant was benched. He's flat out benched. Now, he takes it well. He deserves it, and he knows he does. But Ryan's not going to do that. He is not in a position in life yet. He will be eventually at some point. So, yeah, it's not a surprise that the Wolves had to get, as far as the person who was coaching them, more structure. And now the next thing, though, is going to be, and this is going to be key, managing the egos of guys and how this starts to play out. Because Ant is not going to be the lovable 19-year-old kid for in perpetuity. He's going to become more authoritative probably and become more sure and, not defer as much. I don't know, but things will change. And the question is, can the person who is in charge of managing these egos handle it? And that's D'Lo, if he's here. That's Cat. That's Ant. Beasley.
Pominville.
It's a difficult thing.
Where'd
Pominville come from? But it's a it's difficult. So I'm just curious. I'm curious to my question is, what's the expected pop-up from right now to next year at this time?
Yeah.
Because you can't just stink forever.
Yep, and so much of it depends on if they keep the draft pick and if they decide to get frisky with trades this offseason, which Gersson loves to do. There's a reason why they hired the trade machine guy away from ESPN
and they didn't make
2
any
years ago.
Trades, right, at the deadline, so they're overdue now.
So, all right, so thank you to Gersson Rosas for coming on the show. And you know what? If Houston wins, so they'll play the championship game on Monday night. I mean, he basically asked to come back on the show, and so let's reach out. It would be more fun if they won the whole thing, and then we could have him on to celebrate the whole thing. Maybe we'll just get him on 3 times in a week and see what happens.
Oh, I'm sure he'd love that. He's got plenty of time.
Yep. All right, before we get to Judd's first ever viewing of the Mighty Ducks, have you been to PXG Minneapolis yet? It's a golfer's paradise over there at PXG Minneapolis. The new Gen 4 golf clubs have landed. These are the best performing clubs PXG has ever made, and this is a company that makes really good golf clubs. They also have the 0 to 11 golf clubs in stock, which is also a full line of high performance clubs packed with PXG technology, priced a little bit more within reach. If you just want to look sharp, if you just want, maybe your game is a train wreck, like all of us
sharp.
at Judd.
That's me, man.
Just
That's
want to look sharp.
Yeah.
Looking sharp.
Yeah, the best hair of the show.
As Joe Jackson said, look sharp.
Absolutely.
Yep. So PXG's new spring and summer apparel line also just arrived. PXG Minneapolis and Southdale Center. And find out more at pxg.com/Minneapolis.